The Baltimore Ravens may be interested in star cornerback Jaire Alexander. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day, especially in the offseason, including Mock Draft Mondays. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers, so please subscribe to help out the channel. And also, let me know your thoughts on Jaire Alexander and what I should put right here on my wall. I've had some great suggestions, including TTB logo, getting jerseys, putting a whiteboard up there. Someone suggested a Denny's logo, so I don't know where that's coming from, but probably not going to do that. But thank you all so much for all the support on the channel the last week or so. Obviously, it's a tough time after the Ravens got eliminated, but the offseason is also an exciting time to talk about opportunities for the Baltimore Ravens and how they can potentially get back to the Super Bowl. So, Jaire Alexander. On Twitter this last week, I've really seen his name popping up a lot, not necessarily from any big name sources or anything like that, but a lot of kind of just trade talk on Ravens Twitter, a lot of trade talk on, NFL Rumors Twitter, people bringing up, the Ravens and Jaire Alexander would be interested. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that Lamar Jackson and Jaire Alexander have been connected since they played together in college at Louisville. One of the best NFL draft videos of all time is Jaire reacting to Lamar getting drafted on draft night because they were both drafted obviously in 2018. So very cool to see that. And, Jaire Alexander, would be cool to see him in Baltimore. This is not a video of me saying, this would be a terrible move. But let's talk about the logistics, how it could happen and why it will or will not happen. So first of all, things to know about Jaire Alexander. He's not a free agent. This would be a player that the Ravens would have to trade for, or if he was cut by the Green Bay Packers, which I think is pretty unlikely. But, I have to mention it in case, people in the comments, they like to get after me. They're like, you forgot this one tiny thing to bring up. Not forgetting it, but very unlikely he gets cut. Most likely, with his current contract, he's making over $20 million the next 2 years in terms of cap hit. There's also a void year in 3 years, which is when he's a free agent. The Packers are going to either try and get an extension done to restructure his contract, but if they can't get it done, they're probably going to have to trade him. And in order to do that, they're going to have to find a team that has the cap space to probably give an extension so that they can take on that contract, or the other team would be paying significant draft capital in order to get the Green Bay Packers to take on some of that salary. My problem with that idea is the Green Bay Packers are a team that is attempting to contend, right? If you're trading with the Cleveland Browns, let's say, I know they're not in a good cap space, but maybe the Carolina Panthers is a better situation, right? If you're trading with them and you want to trade for, say, a guy like Adam Thielen, who, again, I don't have these contract numbers, but Adam Thielen is making a lot of money. If you want to be like, we want Adam Thielen, but we don't want to pay him that much, the Panthers will say you know what? We'll take on that contract, and you give us, instead of giving us a 3rd round pick, you give us a 1st round pick. Again, we're not trading a first for Adam Thielen. That's just a comparison. Jaire Alexander, though, is playing on a team that is trying to contend. They need their cap space, right? The Panthers don't need cap space. So they can basically sell it off for higher draft capital. But the Packers, on the other hand, cannot. They want to win. They have Jordan Love. They have Matt LaFleur. They've been to the NFC Championship game with LaFleur. They've, had a potential MVP candidate in Jordan Love coming into the season. And they were in the playoffs. This is a really good football team. So you're not going to be able to just get them to take on some of that salary, meaning the Baltimore Ravens would have to create that cap space in order to acquire him. Now, they can potentially do that. They can get the proper cap space. The question is that what they're going to spend their money on? If you don't know right now, the Ravens are sitting at about $14 million in cap space for 2025. However, that can drastically be reduced. That is including the Marcus Williams $8 million cap hit. That is including a Marlon Humphrey $25 million cap hit, which can be saved. You can get it down. I think you can save $11 million restructuring Marlon. You can save $9 million restructuring Roquan Smith. You can save $15 million restructuring Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't think a Lamar Jackson restructure is going to happen, because I don't think the Ravens necessarily need it. But Marlon restructure is probably going to happen. I could see Roquan restructuring. And that's a hefty chunk of change right there. Now, we also have to consider the Ravens do want to extend certain players, guys like Kyle Hamilton, Taylor Linderbaum, potentially Derrick Henry as well. So the money's not just going to be wide open, but they could get it if they needed to. And if they get Jaire, they can work on restructuring or extending his contract, adding void years in order to make it so that they could pay him that salary. Now, would Jaire do that? I think so. I think if Jaire Alexander wanted to leave the Packers, that's the situation where they trade him, because if they're not trading him if he wants to stay, because he'll re-sign with them. But if he wants to leave, the Ravens would be a perfect situation for him, right? He's playing with a college teammate in Lamar Jackson, a contending team. They'd have the money to pay him. So that right there, I think, is a possibility. My problem with this, let's just bring in Jaire Alexander, is one, a lot of Ravens fans are saying this because Jaire Alexander, big name, one of the best corners in the NFL when he's healthy. But that's the kicker right there, right? When he's healthy. He's played in 7 games each of the last 2 seasons. And, he had a season-ending PCL surgery this year. That's difficult. We don't want to make big trades for players that are struggling to stay on the field. And I love Jaire Alexander. If the Ravens brought him in, right, and it was a pretty cheap deal, yeah, that would be fantastic. But it's not going to be, because he is a superstar cornerback. The issue is the Baltimore Ravens are a contending team. And when you're a contending team, you recognize that the best ability is availability, as the old saying goes, right? How many seasons have the Ravens had in the last 10 years where they feel like, hey, they might make a run in the playoffs or get to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden one of their top corners is out and missing significant time, right? I hate to say, because I love the guy, but like Jimmy Smith was our guy. Now, was Jimmy Smith a Jaire Alexander caliber player? No, but Jimmy Smith was our number 1 corner, and it felt like every year he was getting injured. I don't know if the Ravens are going to risk $20 million cap hit on a player that hasn't played a full year since 2022. Again, he was an All-Pro in 2022, but when you're having, lower body injuries, it's just worrisome for me as a Ravens fan that's watched the cornerback position be decimated by injuries so many times in the last 10 years, honestly, in the last 20 years. It's just a difficult thing to try and rely on. The other aspect is we have other players, right? If we brought in Jaire Alexander, Marlon Humphrey, now all of a sudden there's a question mark there. Are we keeping Marlon long-term? I know Marlon's a slot corner, Nate's an outside corner, and Jaire's an outside corner, but that would be an absurd amount, in my opinion, that they would be paying to corners. Because you'd get Jaire and you'd extend him, meaning you would have to extend Nate Wiggins eventually. You're going to have to figure out if you're keeping Marlon, because in order to get the money, they're probably going to extend Marlon Humphrey and restructure his deal. And if that happens, you're putting 3 corners basically like locked in as our future. And one of them has already had injury history. I personally would much rather go out and draft a cornerback if we want that star. Draft someone round 1, round 2, round 3, if that's the avenue you want to go. Because as good as Jaire is, which I think he's a fantastic player, when he's healthy, he's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. But I don't necessarily think the Ravens need one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. They need a starting caliber corner that they can play that's not a huge liability, which is what Brandon Stephens was. And, $25 million may get you a superstar corner. But again, I think the Ravens have a superstar, right? They have a first-team All-Pro at corner in Marlon Humphrey. They have arguably the best rookie corner from this draft class. Nate Wiggins ended up being, allowed 0 touchdowns. He had one of the lowest completion percentages, one of the stickiest rookie corners in coverage as well. So I'm looking at the Ravens like, you already have 2 really good corners. Are you going to pay another $25 million to get a third? I don't think so. I think I'd look at another position, right, where you want that superstar player, go to a spot where you don't already have an All-Pro, right? Maybe it's edge. Maybe it's tackle. Maybe it's wide receiver, right? That's just my personal opinion. But let me know in the comment section down below your guys' thoughts on Jaire Alexander. Do you think the Ravens even attempt to trade for him? Do you think he resigns? Or if you think, hey, the Ravens should go corner, but you don't think it should be Jaire, let me know who you think. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more. Again, road to 5,000. We're almost at 4,500 already in like a week, which is, incredible. That's some of the biggest growth we've ever experienced on the channel. So thank you all so much. Subscribe for more, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.